All right. Thank you for the fresh air, ladies. That was actually really good. Kind of cool things.
Air is in your home and the windows are closed. And in a room like this, I don't want to think about
Well, it also cools the air down and feels good. Wakes us up a little bit. I don't mind it at all. All right, so this next seminar, we're going to be talking about understanding teaching styles and learning styles. And so I introduced myself last time, so I'm not going to do it again. That heading does not make any sense. Bad communication. Knowing learning styles, both strengths and weaknesses of them, will help us more effectively with teaching as well as learning ourselves. What are learning styles? Information enters your brain in three ways. Sight, hearing, and touch. Which one you use the most is called your learning style. So there's visual learning by sight. There's auditory learners who learn by hearing. And there's tactile learning, or kinesthetic, who learn by touch. So visual learners, they prefer to see information as pictures, diagrams, cartoons, demonstrations, picture words and concepts they hear as images. So they visualize that in their mind when being talked to. They're easily distracted in lecture with no visual aids. They're overwhelmed with intense visuals accompanied by lecture. Benefit from using charts, maps, notes, and flashcards when studying. Auditory learners prefer to hear information spoken, can absorb a lecture with little effort, may not need careful notes to learn, often avoid eye contact in order to concentrate, may read aloud to themselves. They like background music when studying. Have you ever studied and put on background music? That's your style? Anybody else do that? Yeah. All right. How many identify with the first style, the visual style? A couple of you? All right. A couple over here? All right. All right, visual learners like to see it. Auditory learners, let me hear it. Tactile or kinesthetic learners prefer touch as their primary mode of taking in information. In traditional lecture situations, they should write out important facts. Create study sheets connected to vital examples. Role-playing can help them learn and remember important ideas and may benefit from using manipulatives. Let me experience it. Building strengths across the learning styles. Make the best use of learning styles. Encourage your youth to learn with learning style skills that don't come easily to them. Oh, okay. Encourage your youth that have particular learning styles that don't come easily to them. Encourage them to use those styles. So, somebody isn't an auditory learner and you have to talk to them about a particular topic. Encourage them to listen. Encourage them to grow a little bit in that style. One of the things that I've learned is we're not stuck in our learning styles. We can adapt and grow, just like our bodies adapt and grow. We're not always little tiny babies. We grow, we change, and our learning styles can also change with us. So you can change your learning style if you want. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes no, it's not. Be flexible and adaptable. Try new things and new ways. Keep growing. Don't be easily satisfied. All right, and let's talk about, so those are learning styles. Let's talk about teaching styles for a minute here. Teacher as an authority. The first one is called authority style. The teacher considers his students as objects of influence and not as equal partners in the activity. For this reason, the teacher separates himself both from the educational team and from each student individually. This type of teacher always controls independently. In fact, the particular style is more popular in, can you guess where? Huh? Yeah, universities. This would be your typical university teacher, your professor. So that's exactly right. The advantage of the authority method is that it's better approach for older students doing classes which necessitate memorization and don't require teachers' feedback. However, this style of individual lessons is unacceptable. Students become closed. Contact with the teacher is not established, which has a negative influence on the student's success and progress as they don't have any desire to study. Some students resist such an impact and provoke conflict. As a result, most children lose their self-confidence and independence. So, great for adults, not good for kids. All right, teacher as a facilitator. Did we miss one? Yes. Yeah, there we go. Sorry. Teacher as a demonstrator. This style is called the coach style and has many similarities with the authority style. During lessons, a teacher might include multimedia presentations or different class activities. This style is preferred for subject where you can provide a full understanding of a topic only through demonstration. For instance, teaching music, art, science, etc. The main problem is that the interaction between the teacher and the student is small. All right, the third style is named the facilitator style. The main task of the teacher facilitator is to facilitate, at the same time, stimulate the learning process by creating an appropriate intellectual, emotional environment in the classroom and in the atmosphere of the psychological support. This style of teaching encourages self-learning, which means that the student should find answers and information through exploration. Learning is structured as follows. The teacher helps to formulate goals and objectives for the group of students or individual, and then creates a free, relaxed atmosphere that will encourage the students to solve problems. In this case, as a teacher, it is important to be yourself, openly express your thoughts and feelings, to show children full confidence in them and in their capabilities and abilities, to show empathy, that is, the understanding of the feelings and experiences of each student, This technique should be used in small groups because a teacher, facilitator, needs to interact with the students individually. So this is great for small classrooms. Fourth style is the delegator. This method is often used for groups, for group work activity. The teacher has the role of the observer and has to involve students in such activities as different team projects, creating, writing, or debate. The advantage of this teaching strategy is that the student feel their independence and freedom of choice. On the other hand, some people may criticize this style because it influences the teacher's authority. And the fifth style is the hybrid style or blended learning. It is a modern digital teaching approach that combines traditional classroom techniques with computer mandated learning activities. The strength of this training is the combination of different technologies into one integrated learning approach. Teachers prefer blended learning because the quality of the learning quantity and quality of the interaction between the participants in the educational process increase. The teaching method this teaching method helps to create a sense of community in large classes and allows students to access course materials and master them at the convenient time and place. On the contrary, there may be arguments against this learning method because it has a negative impact on the student and teachers. For students, it might be a cognitive load or some usage difficulties for very young, inexperienced learners. For teachers, one of the main problems is overwork. Each time they have to develop unique content adapted to their students' needs. It takes a lot of time. So those are learning styles and teaching styles. What I'd like to talk to you about next is ways that we can incorporate styles and we're done with the slideshow. And I wish I had a little bit more time to actually prepare some of my typical things, but I work quite frequently with the Explorer class in particular. That's my favorite age group, and that's the class that I've spent the most time with. And one of the things that I try to do with my class whenever possible is whenever we get ready to do one of the requirements, whatever it is, whether it's for an honor or for classwork, the first thing I do is I sit down and I look at that particular requirement, and I look at it and say, is this boring in and of itself? And if it is, I like to change it up. I like to find a way that makes it not boring. So that means turning it into a game or some kind of activity. One of the things I like to do is I like to mask that activity so that the kids don't realize that they're actually doing a requirement. They just think they're having some fun. They're doing a fun game. I come up with something new to do. So one of the things that we do in the Explorer class in our particular club is, you have the daily Bible readings that you have to do, but there's also a set of, there's like 5 or 6 in different groups of Bible memory verses that they have to pick one of this set or one of that set and learn a Bible verse. Memorize it. And that's hard for kids to do on their own, and especially at home. They've already got homework that they're taking home from school, and we're giving them reading assignments. They have to read the book of Acts. They have to do their daily Bible readings for their classwork, and now we want them to memorize Bible verses too. So what I've taken to doing is actually doing this in class, the Bible memorization in class. And we'll take a Bible verse and we'll take a couple of class times, so a couple of weeks to learn it. And we do it in a way that's fun and interactive. So in one case, I will have, let's see, there's so many different ways I can tell you. All right, so one of the Bible verses is from 2 Kings. I don't remember which one it is right offhand, but from 2 Kings. And we take, I write out, I figure out how many kids are there ahead of time. And then I'll write out, I'll come up with a card for each child, for each of my Pathfinders in that class. And I will lay them all out, and I'll write the first word or phrase of that Bible verse on one card. Then the next card, I'll add some more to that Bible verse, and I'll keep going down, and then I'll come back to the beginning, and I'll start over with another, long. It's a long Bible verse, so we'll go over, and then I'll continue, and then continue. Kind of like writing a book. You just go across, and then down, and across, and down, and across, until you get the whole Bible verse all written out. And then when the kids come in, I just have them all stand in a circle facing inward, and we take a piece of paper and we'll mix them up first, and we tape them to their backs. And then while the kids are standing in the circle, we tell them, okay, you've got a Bible verse, part of a Bible verse on the back of your, on your back. Now what you need to do is you need to figure out how to get yourselves in order. So you need to talk amongst yourselves, figure out the order that you need to be in, and get in that order in a circle. And so they'll do that. And it'll take them some time. They'll work at it for a while, and eventually they'll begin to figure it out. And we might give them some hints and some clues, but they're communicating, they're talking, they're relating to each other, trying to figure this puzzle out, trying to get it to work. And when they're all said and done, they've got it. They're all in line, and then we'll go through and we'll read it to them out loud on their back. So I'll touch their back and I'll say, this is this one. I'll go to the next one, and we'll go through and we'll read the Bible verse out loud. And then we'll take all the cards off, and we'll mix them up again, and we'll put them all back on. And this time it's a lot faster. They already know it. So we'll do that a few times, and then we'll see if they can remember it and do it by heart. And a lot of times they do. So that's one method. Another method that I like, and this one is for one of the, which one is it, where whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are, yeah, that one. Yes. That one is really long, and it's got a lot of the same phrases over and over, but they're not in all the same order, and a lot of repetitious stuff. And so that one, I like to actually print out a single word on a sheet of paper. The word will be this big, literally this big on a sheet of paper. And so each piece of paper is a separate word. And what I do is I lay those on the floor, and I make a pattern. And the kids will come, and we'll have the kids, as they step through the memory verse, they have to step on each paper. And as they step on a paper, they have to say that word. And then they step on the next one and say that word. So they're saying, each time they put their foot down, they're saying a word. And another word, and another word, and another word. So they're saying it as they go through whatever maze I set up for them. And so one of them will go through. When they get done, then the next one can go through. When they get done, the next one can go through. And they'll go through it 2 or 3 times. Kids think nothing of it until I pull out a couple. And they have to remember those 2 that I pulled out. And they have to step back through them, remembering the step where those 2 are that I took out. And so they go through it again, and everybody's laughing now, having fun, and then we'll pull out a couple more. And we keep pulling out, after a few times, we keep pulling out until we've pulled all but the Bible reference at the end. And they're stepping through it. They know it. And they can then repeat it back to you. So we'll do that a couple times over a couple weeks. Yeah?
What's the time frame that you're using for that exercise?
You know what? It depends. It depends on how large the class is. Sometimes we only have a few minutes to learn something, so we'll do it as long as we can, and then the next week we can come back and pick up where we left off. Maybe we have to start again, but they pick up a lot faster on it. So it just depends. There's no 2 classes that are ever the same. It just isn't. I mean, even week to week, it's never the same. You're missing somebody this week. You have a friend come this week. It's never the same. So you've got to be flexible. You've got to be able to change. There's also another memory verse that I do is I have little wood blocks that I've cut up on the table saw, and they're just square blocks of wood. And I'll print off a memory verse with the words that are fairly small, and I tape them to the blocks, and I make 2 sets of them. And so what I'll do with that is I will put each set in a separate bag so they're not mixed up, and then we have the kids, we'll have them look at the memory verse in the Bibles first, and we won't tell them what we're going to do or anything. So they'll look at the memory verse a couple times, and I'll tell them, okay, put your Bibles away. And then I'll have them break up into 2 groups, and I'll give one group one bag and another group the other bag, and I'll say, okay, dump these out, mix them up, and on the start of go, I want to see which one of you 2 groups will get it done faster. And that's the activity. And it's fun. And it's exciting. It's something different. They haven't done that before, so that's another method. I've also done a memory verse where we have a on your cell phone. You know how each of the number, when you dial a phone number, it's got ABC for number 1 and all the numbers and letters. Well, I came up with a picture of that I give to the kids, and blanks underneath. And let's see, how do I do this? It has numbers, and they have to translate those numbers into letters, which means there's 3 possibilities for each of those numbers, but they've got to figure that out. And we put them in groups of 2 or 3 to work through that. One of the things I do when I put the kids together into groups, and I try to be diligent about this, I try to make sure that the one Pathfinder that seems to be a little bit slower than the rest, I'm trying to be as polite as I can here, I try to put them with maybe one of the Pathfinders that seem to be the quickest, to kind of even the odds and kind of help everybody out. And it's just something I try to do, and I suspect you guys probably will do that too. So some other activities that I've done, they just keep flowing through me. I've done one where I do a ball, and we sit in a circle, and we'll just have a ball. Sometimes it's a blow-up ball, sometimes it's a rolly, bouncy ball. Just depends on what ball we have at the time. And we'll start off by rolling it. Whoever has the ball will just randomly roll it to somebody. And when they catch it, they have to say the first word of the Bible verse, and then they roll it to somebody else. And they have to say the second word, and then they roll it to somebody else, and they have to say the third word, and then they roll it to somebody else, and if they mess up, we have to start over. They learn it. They learn it pretty fast. You'd be surprised. They don't want to do it for too terribly long, and so they're on each other about making sure they got it, and they correct each other, and they learn pretty fast. One of the activities that we do in our Pathfinders is, in the Explorer class particularly, is we have one activity where we have to look at 8 different missionaries and indicate on a map where they served at between a certain age year range, and we have to come up with some sort of a report to share with each other on that particular missionary. So one of the things that I've done is, kids hate reports. They get enough of that at school. So to curb that and make that still legal, we still fulfill the requirements, but to help make that a little bit more exciting, what I've done is I've gone through and I've found, 12 or so, maybe 13 different missionaries, and I've created a report on them already. I have their photo, I have where they served, when they served, just basic information about them, and I'll print 2 or 3 sets of those papers. And I'll have the kids break up into groups of 2 or 3. 3 is better than 2, but if you got a really small class, maybe you just have 2 at a time. But they'll break up into teams. Again, I try to put slower children with faster children, so it kind of evens the odds. It makes everybody work together better. And then I'll have each of them come up, each group come up, and they'll pick any 2 that they want, or any 3 that they want, depending on how many kids I have. We have to end up with 8 total. So 8 divided by how many ever groups you have. That's how many they need to get. So they come up and they get 2 or 3 of these papers randomly. They pick the ones that they want. And then together as a team, they have a set of criteria that I ask them to look for. So they have to read it out loud to themselves or together. They have to read it out loud to each other. And they have to decide on some of the most important features are where did they serve, when did they serve, and then one characteristic that really stuck out to them. And they have to write these down. And then when everybody's got that done, we come back together as a group, and then we have our teams report to the entire group. And the entire group fills out the book together. And we're all learning from each other that way. It saves a lot of time, but it makes it a lot more digestible for these Pathfinders. I don't know if I said this to this group or not, but many years ago, I was doing a conference like this for Advent Source, traveling, and I ran into Norm Midegg. How many of you know that name or know Norm Midegg? All right, none of you? All right. Norm Midegg, back in the mid-'80s, was the North American Division Pathfinder Director. And he's the guy that wrote the Pathfinder Staff Manual, the AY Instructor's Manual. He put the first Honors Handbook together. A lot of the big manuals, the main manuals that we use in Pathfinders or have used in the past, came from this guy, from his brain. So as the guy that authored all of this, I was really intrigued when he and I were having a personal conversation face to face, like you and me right here. We were talking. And he said to me that in the process of writing these manuals, he didn't intend for these manuals to be black and white, this is how you run your club, or else. This was meant to be a guide for those clubs, those new people that didn't know how to run a club, that needed some guidance. And he said, by any means, if somebody can't meet the requirements in the book, don't meet the requirements in the book. Who cares? Look at it instead and try and figure out what is the intent of that requirement. What are we trying to get the kids to learn as a result of this requirement? Can we get them to learn that another way? And that's one of the things that I would really strongly urge you guys to look at too, is when you're looking at your curriculum and you're planning your activity for a Pathfinder event, does it meet the needs as it's written? Does it meet the needs? Is there another way that we could do that? Is there another way that we could make it more interesting for the kids, easier to digest, fun? And that's what we need to do. We need to take the time to plan. In my last class, not last class, the class before that, I had a group of people that I was talking to, and in my presentation there, one of the things that I said was, for every 30 minutes of class time that you're planning for, you need to take an hour of time to plan it. Does that make sense? So if you're planning on 15 minutes to teach this particular whatever it is, take a half-hour time to actually plan that out. And try and make a game of it. Try and come up with some ingenious, fun way to make it exciting for these young people. Because they're tired of school. There's no reason they should come to Pathfinders and have school. I remember Pathfinders when I was a kid, and here's my philosophy, or my thoughts on the whole progression of Pathfinders since the 80s. When I was in school in mid-'80s, early 80s, we did the AY curriculum at school. There was a point in which the North American Division Education Department said, I don't think we want to do that anymore. Let's drop that from our curriculum. So the North American Division Education schools decided to drop the AY curriculum from the school. Not all schools have dropped it completely. There's some schools that still play at it a little bit. But for the most part, most of our schools dropped it immediately. And the Pathfinders were like, whoa, wait, that's so critical to what we're doing. It ties in. If the schools aren't doing that, there's a whole piece of what we're doing that doesn't make any sense anymore. Well, let's just take it on. And so they took it on. And so that's when Pathfinders got bogged down. We started doing school in Pathfinders. And I really, we've gotten better. We used to do the AY instructors books, the classwork. And now we've gone to AYMT, which is, or not AYMT, Investiture Achievement, which takes a lot of that work out, but there's still quite a bit still in there. When I was in Pathfinders, when I went to Pathfinders, we did honors, we had special guests, or we went on outings. That was Pathfinders. That was fun. So we have a huge challenge ahead of us as leaders of Pathfinders and adventurers to take this classwork and turn it into something fun. And that would be my challenge for you guys, is to work at making Pathfinders and adventurers fun for your kids. So anyway, that is my presentation. That's my thought. Yeah. All right. I guess we're done early. I don't know. We're done. Take a break. You deserve it. Oh, yeah, I'll sign.